A terrified man was devoured by the gruesome horrors monster. At that moment, a burly man on a motorcycle sped to the scene and swiftly knocked the monster over. He then pierced it with his sword. Soon after, this muscular hero dragged the creature across the ground. Confronting the uncontrollable horrors, a man named Wilhelm summoned his powers. Space shattered, and golden armor enveloped his body. Hidden in the shadows, he is the Golden Guardian who cleaves through all darkness. Known as the strongest Makai Knight, Garo. His sharp sword tore through everything before him. The monster, a terror in the dark slaughtering humans, was utterly defenseless. Finally, a fierce sword strike utterly destroyed it. Surrounded by blazing flames, the Golden Knight Garo stood like a warrior god of fire. 2 days ago, a man grabbed Sophie, a girl on the verge of falling, but his head twisted 180 degrees. He was a horrors monster born from darkness. The horrors chased Sophie until Wilhelm knocked him down with a punch, aiming to end the creature. However, the starved and enraged horrors fought back. Wilhelm continuously punched the horrors in the face until it fell silent on the ground. But it was just a ruse by the cunning horrors. When Wilhelm was off guard, it pounced on Sophie and fled with her. Wilhelm chased them down and intercepted the horrors again. To save itself, the horrors threw Sophie off a high building. Kind-hearted Wilhelm chose to save her, allowing the horrors to escape. Later, Wilhelm explained to Sophie that horrors exploit the negative emotions hidden within humans to invade and possess, preying on humans at night. Sophie revealed that she had sought a moonlight sorcerer for divination to find her missing brother Martin, not knowing he was a monster. Wilhelm asked Sophie to help lure the monster out, and his motto ring Zaruba also persuaded her. She agreed. That dark night, the sinister horrors appeared again, chasing Sophie. Wilhelm ambushed and threw the horrors aside. After injuring it, Wilhelm demanded the location of El Dorado, the Golden Country, which was also the clue left by Sophie's brother. The horrors mocked Wilhelm's foolish dreams. Then it transformed into its terrifying true form as red lights glowed. Wilhelm summoned the Motto motorcycle and took Sophie to dodge the relentless pursuit. Despite the horror's persistence, Wilhelm's superb driving skills eventually shook it off, and he took Sophie to safety before setting out to destroy the monster. Wilhelm, in his powerful Garo form, ultimately reduced the horrors to ashes. This horrors monster, who went out for a night run to exercise and snack, was being chased by the Golden Knight. Despite its fast speed, it was caught and severely beaten by the Golden Knight. This monster was once a rising star on the athletic track, having won numerous accolades. However, a career-ending injury on the track left it unable to run, leading it to despise its fate. It questioned why fate allowed others to keep their legs while it lost its own, which were crucial to its achievements. Overwhelmed with emotion, the man fell to the ground, where a sinister voice spoke to him. Sensing his hatred, the devil tempted him, promising that giving into possession would fulfill his desire to run again. The man agreed, and the horrors from the demonic realm entered his body, letting him run wildly on his legs, now controlled by the horrors. It was snack time for the horrors. Meanwhile, Makai alchemist Luke spotted the creature from a high-rise building. He had never seen a horrors move so swiftly, making him wonder if it had 18 legs. He lost the signal, and thus the trail. The next day, Luke met Wilhelm at a restaurant operated by the watchdogs. Wilhelm, seeing the plump waitress, continued his habit of praying in gratitude. The mission assigned by the watchdogs was to hunt down the horrors seen the previous night. Wilhelm had also been tracking it but lost it. The watchdogs, a group of powerful Makai priests, do not interfere directly in human affairs, but delegate the task of eliminating horrors that escape from the demonic realm to Makai knights. Luke and Wilhelm went to the district where the horrors monster had disappeared to investigate. However, Luke found no clues. A distressed woman was searching for her missing husband, who, she revealed, had been a sprint champion and was disabled due to an accident, but had vanished the previous night. Wilhelm and Luke immediately suspected a connection between her husband and the horror's monster. Luke instructed Wilhelm that if he spotted the horrors, he should drive it towards the slums where Luke had set up a trap to deal with it. After this, the aloof Luke left. A tired woman returned home where a man approached her. It was her missing husband. To her shock, he was standing up and complained of being very hungry, then attempted to eat her. The horror's monster lunged at its human wife, but Wilhelm, who had anticipated this, appeared and saved her. Sensing something amiss, the monster fled, starting a dizzying chase. Transformed into Garo, Wilhelm rode his Motto motorcycle and executed a sharp drift to block the horror's path, herding it towards the arena Luke had prepared. The foolish monster's movements were completely visible to Luke from a high-rise building. Luke, armed with his Makai guns, took aim and fired a demon-eliminating bullet at the horrors. Just then, a bystander appeared. To avoid harming the innocent, Luke had to hold back his lethal shot and change the battle site. He reloaded his sniper rifle and shot from 180 kilometers away, aiming to finish off the horrors. But at the last moment, Wilhelm took the kill. The detached Luke, unbothered by the outcome, coolly exited the scene. Wilhelm comforted the woman who had lost her husband. Luke cast a spell that erased the woman's memory of the incident. The next day, the woman, with no memory of these events, continued to search the streets for her lost husband. This delicate and beautiful woman has a unique, unknown hobby. Not only can she crawl on walls like a spider, but she also enjoys eating raw meat. Isn't she interesting? Meanwhile, a girl named Sophie is on her way to meet this woman in search of clues about the legendary city of El Dorado. She has been asking about the whereabouts of the Knight Wilhelm in Armor forums. She then learns from a roommate at the orphanage about a recent paranormal event involving a priest who used to visit them and has mysteriously disappeared. Ever since, faint moans can be heard at night from the church. Sophie thinks Wilhelm might appear there. After asking around, Sophie finally arrives at the church and meets the beautiful long-haired woman introduced earlier, who is Mary, the priest's sister. Kind-hearted Mary invites Sophie inside. She tells Sophie that she has been seeking help from local police since her brother's disappearance, but to no avail. Sophie empathizes deeply, as she has also been searching for her own brother without giving up. The two women feel a closer bond. Sophie curiously observes the withered flowers scattered around the house. Mary explains that keeping them has been a long-time hobby of hers. Suddenly, the doorbell rings. Opening the door, they are surprised to find Wilhelm holding fresh flowers. Wilhelm is equally surprised to see Sophie there. He then reveals his purpose. He came to visit the beautiful Miss Mary. He comforts Mary, who has lost her brother, and wishes he could move in immediately to take care of her. Sophie watches this scene speechlessly. The gentle Mary blushes, reminiscent of a time when a handsome young man once expressed his love for her in her youth, making her feel so happy. It seems as if she hears her brother's voice behind her, interrupting her memories, as the flowers fall to the ground. Sophie followed Wilhelm as he turned to leave and stepped outside, hoping to learn more about the Golden Country. Wilhelm tricked her into looking away, then sped off on his motorcycle, advising Sophie to return home before sunset. Sophie didn't take his words seriously, and as night fell, she returned to the church. Mary was delighted to warmly welcome Sophie back, and the atmosphere was cozy and congenial. Sophie asked Mary if her brother was as gentle as hers. Mary paused and said, "He loved me more than anyone else and often told me how pretty I was. Though his words were gentle, they now seemed eerie." It turned out that Mary's brother was a perverse sibling controller with an intense possessiveness over her, not allowing any man near her. Once a naive and romantic Mary lived under the violent shadow of her brother, leading her to see the world in shades of despairing black and tragic red. Abused by her brother, Mary felt the world mourning for her as she wilted like a delicate flower. With bloodshot eyes, Mary slowly approached Sophie, who was terrified and ran away, finding herself in a basement where Mary had once been tortured. The room was filled with bloody torture instruments and scattered long hair, testifying to Mary's suffering. More horrifying was a decayed male head buried among fresh flowers, identified as the priest's. Suddenly, noises came from above as Mary broke through the ceiling. Sophie watched in horror as Mary gnawed on the priest's head, then transformed like eating a magical red mushroom into Super Mario. Mary had become a horror's monster. At a critical moment, the reliable Wilhelm swooped in on his motorcycle from the sky. Facing the charging horrors monster, he swiftly grabbed it and told Sophie to leave quickly before dragging the monster outside for a hand-to-hand fight. Sophie, feeling helpless but wanting to assist, tried to move the church's large bell to create trouble for the monster. The monster quickly dodged, but her action caught its attention. Wilhelm then transformed into the Golden Knight and decisively defeated the horrors monster with a single strike. Meanwhile, Sophie was hit by a dislodged bell clapper and fell from the building. But fortunately, a motorcycle controlled by Zaruba saved her in time. Sophie pleaded with Wilhelm to help her search for clues to the Golden Country. Looking at the pitiful Sophie, Wilhelm was reminded of his deceased sister and couldn't help but agree. Together, they embarked on a demon-hunting journey. The overweight woman took off her silk nightgown, leaving the man to endure the humiliation and pain with tears. Suddenly, the woman stopped and got out of bed, allowing the man to breathe a sigh of relief, having narrowly escaped. Initially, the woman was an obscure 18-line actress, but she quickly rose to become an international superstar. All actors who opposed her suffered sudden accidents. After reaching the top, she retired bravely and married a wealthy businessman who mysteriously died soon after. Rumors said the woman possessed a ring that could control powerful horrors monsters, attracting the attention of the horrors monster hunting organization, Watchdogs. To investigate undercover, Gina and Wilhelm posed as a married couple, and at Sophie's insistence, she also joined the mission. After becoming a wealthy widow, the woman was known far and wide as an expert in handling troublesome children. Any child sent to her was transformed into an obedient one. Wilhelm and Gina sought the woman's help with the mischievous Sophie. Inside the mansion, eerie black cats were everywhere. The woman told Wilhelm that in a few days, she would train a daughter as docile as a cat. Meanwhile, Gina took Sophie and left on a pretext to investigate, leaving Wilhelm to deal with the woman. Captivated by Wilhelm's robust appearance, the woman was overtaken by lust. To buy time, Wilhelm had to sacrifice himself tearfully. Elsewhere, Gina and Sophie sneaked around, and at an unusual wall, Gina used Makai alchemist magic to break a barrier, leading them into a dark underground area. There, they found diaries hidden by children previously sent to the woman. It turned out that the woman was using the power of horrors monsters to extract the children's souls and transfer them into black cats. Deep underground, they found a crimson summoning circle used for calling demons. Gina guessed this circle was a medium for horrors monsters to enter the real world. Just then, the overweight woman appeared. She had sensed Gina's entry into the basement and prepared to eliminate her, inadvertently freeing the distressed Wilhelm. The woman summoned the castle's black cats, which transformed into dark tentacles attacking Gina. However, Gina's magical potion easily destroyed them. Seeing the damaged Maddo ring, Gina realized that the woman did not have the power to control horrors monsters. Originally, when she summoned the horrors monsters using counterfeit Maddo rings, she was overpowered and consumed by them, becoming a horrors monster herself. Only when Gina exposed everything did the woman realize she had long been dead. Losing control, she reverted to her true horrors monster form, intending to devour them. However, Gina's Maddo ring magic protected them from the dark power. Wilhelm arrived just in time and fatally struck the horrors monster from behind, marking a successful completion of their first demon hunting mission together. This captivating woman drew the attention of all the men present, and she was none other than Makai alchemist Gina. Mob boss Arthur could not resist approaching her. Gina played along, and after their close interaction, she obtained Arthur's DNA authentication information. Investigator Gina's infiltration plan was already halfway to success, but she faced a man-eating computer next. Arthur, originally a mediocre, lecherous thug, rose within a month to be the biggest emerging mob boss in the region. Gina suspected that this abnormal rise was due to the influence of horrors monsters. Earlier, Gina had stormed the gang's building alone, beating fully armed guards until they were swollen and dazed, unable to do anything but watch her continue. At the last laser-filled barrier, Gina easily flipped over, but Arthur caught her at the last moment. After escaping, Gina decided to seek Wilhelm's help. Wilhelm, grateful to the heavens for his robust physique, was sent flying by Gina's forceful greeting. Unable to resist admiring Gina's fiery figure, Wilhelm was about to pray in thanks, but was attacked by Gina's pet beast because he had entered its territory. Gina informed Willem that their mission to hunt horror's monsters targeted the suddenly powerful Arthur. At the top floor of their headquarters, there was a heavily guarded room, likely hiding the horror's monster. To gather information about the Golden Country from the horror's monster, Wilhelm agreed to help Gina. Meanwhile, various powerful figures convened to plot a joint effort to eliminate Arthur, who now threatened them. As they were making plans, gunfire erupted. All the guards outside had been eliminated, and then 2 gunmen with Gatling guns began firing, suppressing them with overwhelming firepower. Arthur had already received intelligence and directly eliminated all rival gangs with his men, capturing the sole survivor and bringing him back to headquarters. Upon waking up, this man found himself facing a bizarre computer that was actually alive and trying to devour him alive. Arthur's newly recruited subordinate, witnessing this horrifying scene, was almost scared to death. Arthur proudly explained that it was with the continuous intelligence provided by this computer that he was able to rise from a thug to a boss. However, there was a cost: feeding the computer a living person every day. To infiltrate the final room, Gina and Wilhelm split up. Gina, having gained access with Arthur's DNA authentication, was pursued by a man who noticed something off but was unaware of her capabilities. After Gina defeated him, she confirmed the presence of a horror's monster. Meanwhile, Wilhelm successfully infiltrated and Gina disabled the defense system. In just 60 seconds, the forceful Wilhelm dismantled a large iron door with his bare hands and entered the eerie room. Arthur, sensing something amiss, surrounded Gina with his men. Gina, playing the victim, claimed she was forced by the muscular Wilhelm and had no choice. The man, recently beaten by Gina, was nearly questioning his life choices. Arthur watched Wilhelm approach the computer without panic, thinking the robust man would be an extra meal for the computer. As Arthur and his thugs prepared to enjoy the show, they were nearly shocked, speechless. The computer creature they feared was about to sneak attack, but was grabbed by Wilhelm, who seized its electric tentacles. Wilhelm, picking up a Gorokin, quickly handled everything and even punched the computer creature to destruction. However, this was not its true form. The enraged computer creature prepared to devour all the living people in the building. Its twisted, crawling electric tentacles lunged at the thugs. Gina dropped her disguise and fired a defensive magic bullet, temporarily halting the rampaging tentacles. The thugs fled in terror. Arthur, unwilling to lose everything, pointed his gun at Gina, having lost his sanity. At the last moment, a man with a newly found conscience switched sides and knocked Arthur down. At this point, the electric tentacles began to spread toward them. The grotesque full form of the computer creature finally appeared, and Wilhelm transformed into his golden Garo form. Above them, Wilhelm swiftly cut through all the tentacle attacks of the computer creature. After an intense battle, Wilhelm knocked the creature to the ground. Then, descending from the sky, his raging aerial slash pierced through the body of the computer creature. With a thunderous explosion, the horror's monster was destroyed, and Gina and the man were saved. As Gina prepared to leave, the man questioned her, asking why she would save someone like Arthur. Gina responded with a fiery, red-lipped kiss, leaving the man in shock. Arthur, however, could not escape his fate and was shot by a former enemy after losing his power. Have you ever heard of a movie theater that likes to eat couples? This horror's monster, transformed from a single person, secretly drags girls inside itself and uses its big eyes to create illusions. Then, it swallows them whole. Boys left behind in the movie theater become single. The horror's monster hunting organization, Watch Dogs, issues orders to Luke and Wilhelm to investigate the strange disappearances occurring frequently at the cinema. The aloof Luke mocks Wilhelm, saying he's now just a babysitter and probably too busy to handle this case. Wilhelm, frustrated by Sophie making faces, says nothing. Luke goes to the cinema alone and tricks the ticket seller into giving him a ticket using his Madog. Everything seems normal until the movie ends, and it appears the horror's monster might not exist. Sophie, eager to help, learns from an all-knowing forum that the previous disappearances all occurred in cinema seat L13. Luke visits the cinema again and luckily sits directly in seat L13. An unusual event occurs. The movie screen shows scenes of a young Luke practicing sword fighting with his father, a formidable Silver Knight who had strict expectations, hoping Luke would inherit the title of Silver Knight. At this point, Luke is trapped in the horrors monster's illusion. Upon hearing of Luke's disappearance, Willem rushes to the cinema. Madoga Zaruba senses the presence of the horrors monster. They finally find the entrance to the barrier. Willem's sharp Gorokin pierces through the seat, and surprisingly, crimson horrors monster flesh spurts out. Wilhelm then enters the body of the cinema horrors monster. Watching Luke trapped in the illusion, Wilhelm loudly reminds him, "Didn't your mother die right before your eyes?" Luke snaps awake and the illusion vanishes. Then, a huge black horrors monster appears before him. Makai alchemist Luke quickly charges forward, firing his Makai guns wildly at the horrors monster. He then leaps up, dodging the monster's disgusting saliva attack, and lands on top of the monster's head. Under the enhancement of the Mado Ring magic circle, his magic bullets, now more powerful, fire continuously. With one fierce shot, the horrors monster's body explodes and dissipates. After Luke stylishly lands, facing the horrors monster's large eyes, he charges at it with his sword. Outside the illusion, Wilhelm, holding his Gorokin, also stabs at the horrors monster's magic eye. Together they strike, destroying the monster that masqueraded as a movie theater and preyed on couples. The usually reserved Luke says he owes Wilhelm a favor. Wilhelm tells Luke to repay the favor to Sophie instead, as she was the one who found the crucial clue. From then on, Luke truly accepts Sophie. He is Chris, the Dark Knight who fell into the abyss of darkness. Once the mightiest Silver Knight, he lost himself in the pursuit of power and sacrificed his soul and body to darkness. This is the destined battle between darkness and light. The Golden Knight and the Dark Knight instantly burst forth at high speed. The heavy bulk glaive and the rapidly oscillating Gorokin clashed violently, sending sparks flying through the air. Then, with a fierce blow, Dark Knight Chris sent Golden Knight Wilhelm flying, crashing through several reinforced concrete buildings. Following up to the rooftop, could this be the end for Wilhelm? Not long ago, a horrors monster named Pawn from the land of El Dorado infiltrated Russell City. He met a female office worker attracted by the allure of the Golden Country. As she inquired about El Dorado, Pawn reverted to his true monstrous form and devoured her. Meanwhile, a mysterious white-haired man appeared in the city, seeking information about Sophie. Wilhelm and Luke began investigating a series of disappearances. Sophie discovered a crucial clue. A 7-member online gaming team had recently vanished after declaring their intent to seek happiness in El Dorado. She informed Wilhelm and Luke, who then found the missing individuals unconscious in a store's basement. There, Wilhelm noticed a map on the wall marking Sophie's orphanage as a target. Elsewhere, a nun told the children at dinner about a kind stranger offering a free trip to El Dorado. Sophie felt uneasy, and shortly after, the doorbell rang. The kind stranger, who was actually the horrors monster Pawn, arrived early at the orphanage. Due to Wilhelm disrupting their plans, Pawn prepared to forcibly take the children. Following the nun's instructions, Sophie led the children away from the orphanage and called Wilhelm for help. The nun faced the monstrous Pawn, refusing to step back as she protected her children. However, she was overpowered and severely wounded. Upon Sophie's return, the true form of Pawn couldn't suppress his bloodlust. Just then, the white-haired man appeared, killing the horrors monster that almost murdered Sophie. Shockingly, he also killed the nun by stabbing her, revealing that he was sent by the King of El Dorado to bring Sophie back. Wilhelm and Luke arrived just in time. Seeing the white-haired man, Luke became extremely agitated and engaged him in a fierce battle on the streets. It turned out that this mysterious man was Chris, the once strongest Silver Knight and Luke's father, who had fallen to become a Dark Knight. Soon, Luke was overpowered and stabbed by Chris. Fortunately, Wilhelm intervened in time, saving Luke from being killed by his own father. Meanwhile, members of the Watchdogs organization set up a barrier around the Knight's battlefield to protect the city, and sent other members to help Sophie escape. As the two girls headed to the underground shelter, they encountered a large group of horrors monsters trying to capture Sophie. They used a magical talisman to safely escape the danger. Faced with a formidable opponent, both Chris and Wilhelm donned their Mato Ring armor. The battle between the Dark Knight and the Golden Knight began. Sending violent gusts that shattered all nearby building windows. Ultimately, after withstanding a powerful blow from the Dark Knight, Wilhelm, reminded of his tragic past where he lost his only sister, believed their power existed to protect others. Wilhelm chose to engage in hand-to-hand combat with the Dark Knight Chris, aiming to show him the futility of power without belief. The furious punches from the Golden Knight overwhelmed the Dark Knight. The enraged Golden Knight demonstrated his formidable strength, severely injuring the Dark Knight Chris, who fell to the ground. Wilhelm then disengaged his armor, his fists still glowing with golden energy, preparing to finish off Chris. Suddenly, a blast of white energy filled the air with dust and smoke, allowing Chris to escape. Countless horrors monsters chased a speeding car. A handsome man with a sniper rifle appeared, never missing a shot, killing one horror after another. He then leapt into action, facing the dense swarm of horrors directly, took the optimal firing stance, and unleashed a barrage of bullets from his dual guns. His powerful gunfire cleared all the horrors monsters, and he stylishly landed after killing the last one. The group of four, seeking revenge against their king, headed west toward El Dorado, the Golden Country. Along the way, they overcame various challenges, including a roadside store owner who bred horrors monsters and tried to harm two girls for their wealth. This time, however, the store owner was defeated by them. A giant water demon was annihilated by the perfect teamwork of Makai alchemist Gina and Golden Knight Wilhelm. Continuing west, Sophie was kidnapped by a humanoid horrors disguised as a public security officer. Wilhelm was mistakenly pursued by armed townsfolk as a kidnapper. Fortunately, with Gina's help, they caught up with the humanoid horrors, which revealed its true form. Remembering the numerous false accusations it had framed him with, Wilhelm destroyed it in seconds. However, finding the Golden Country was not easy. Bishop, one of the Golden Country's three swords, led an army of horrors against them. The horrors cast a shadow over the sky, and their war vehicles kicked up dust clouds filled with malice towards Wilhelm and his group. To protect Sophie, Wilhelm had Gina take her away from the battlefield. The strongest Golden Knight, Garo, decided to face the massive army alone. Wilhelm and Zaruba donned their golden armor and charged into the terrifying horde of horrors. Wilhelm gripped his Gorokin and effortlessly slashed through the massive bodies of the horrors. No matter how many horrors there were, under Wilhelm's sword, they turned from malicious and fierce to desperate and fearful. On the other side, Bishop personally led a flying squadron of horrors in pursuit of Sophie. Gina's years of driving skills helped her dodge the physical attacks of the horrors. She instructed Sophie to climb into the back seat, where there was a terrifying modified Gatling gun. Sophie took a deep breath, decisively pulled the trigger, and unleashed a torrent of terrifying steel magic towards the horrors in the sky, causing heavy losses. Luke also arrived in time, dealing with the remaining horrors. Forced to act personally, Bishop emerged from the ground, causing their car to lose control. Sophie was bound by several tentacles. Just as Bishop was about to take her away, Zaruba rushed out, rescued Sophie, and sped off with her to escape. This ancient motorcycle, after calming the frightened little girl, resolutely charged towards the pursuing Dark Knight. Amidst a loud explosion, golden fragments scattered, and the girl was heartbroken. Wilhelm gently cradled his severely injured old companion, Zaruba. The Dark Knight, only slightly injured, was already closing in. Wilhelm had no time to say goodbye before Zaruba faded away into streaks of light. "Let's fight with his strength then," Wilhelm resolved, his attire solemn. Blood-red lightning coursed as his golden armor shone. Golden Knight Garo Wilhelm pointed his sword at his enemy. Dark Knight Chris leaped in with a slash, his immense power shattering the ground. Blades clashed, and after a fierce battle, Wilhelm gained the upper hand with several quick moves. He then grasped Chris's head, but as the foremost warrior of the Golden Country, Chris would not be defeated so easily. After a scoff, Chris easily broke free. Suddenly, the king of the Golden Country summoned Chris. Wanting to continue the fight, Chris had no choice but to leave. Wilhelm, staring at his empty hands, remained silent. On the other side, the Golden Country Wilhelm had been seeking turned out to be a perfect realm yearned for by the common people. Here, everyone was equal and happy, an Eden where people enjoyed themselves. Melia, who had lived a hard life at the bottom, arrived in this Golden Country. At the invitation of a friendly stranger, she found herself at a wild dance party. The party host announced that the most popular game segment was starting. Under the spotlight, Melia and two other girls were chosen as the lucky stars of the day. Confused, Melia looked around at the excited crowd, not understanding until she heard screams from afar. Fear started to set in. At that moment, the creatures around her eyes glowed red. It turned out this was a realm of horrors monsters, and the Golden Country was their hunting ground for humans. Unaware humans were deceived by illusions, working for the horrors monsters, and ultimately, they might randomly become food for the horrors. The party venue was their dining hall. Faced with the horrors revealing their true forms, Melia ran for her life and grabbed a seemingly normal man for help. In ancient legend, there existed an evil dark Mado ring. Whoever possessed the Mado ring held terrifying power over demons. The ruler of the Golden Country harnessed the power of the Mado ring to control three powerful dark beings, known as the Golden Country's Three Swords: Dark Knight Chris, Dark Queen Quinn, and Shadow Walker Bishop. A brutal horrors monster, coveting the power of the Mado ring, infiltrated the Golden Country. Opening its mouth, it suddenly spat out an organ that devoured a man's face. After two men transformed into its clones, they were absorbed into its body. To defeat the ruler of the Golden Country and seize the Dark Mado ring, the monster charged into a gathering place of horrors in the Golden Country. Surrounded by horrors, they planned to completely tear apart this audacious intruder. Eventually, the man dragged the leading horrors to the headquarters of the Golden Country. He threw the treacherous horrors against a barrier, easily breaking through and entering the building. Confronting Dark Queen Quinn, the overconfident man boasted grandly and struck first, sending his clone hurtling towards the queen. The clone, with its remarkable regenerative abilities, was unfazed by the queen's red petal attack. However, he was soon to learn what true terror and power were. With a wave of her hand, Quinn easily bound the man's clone with countless tendrils. A demonic man-eating plant emerged, baring its fangs as fear spread. Quinn declared their crimes. The dying man reverted to his true horrors form and lunged at the Dark Queen. His sharp claws were easily blocked by the queen, who mocked the man's overestimation of himself, crushed his hand, and kicked him away. The demonic plant pounced, devouring his body. Everything came to an end. Meanwhile, Wilhelm and his group arrived in the Golden Country. Gina had returned to the Land of Guidance for another mission, and Sophie finally found her missing brother. Willem and Luke discovered that the Golden Country was actually a realm of horrors monsters. They began searching for clues everywhere. Sophie connected to the network of the Golden Country. A mysterious person handed her an envelope containing information about the true nature of the Golden Country. Willem went to the designated location and met the mysterious man, who turned out to be a staff member who developed the network for the Golden Country. Driven by curiosity, he had cracked an encrypted file and discovered that he was surrounded by monsters. He then received an anonymous message advising him to hide immediately and look for a golden knight named Wilhelm. He also revealed to Wilhelm that the so-called Golden Country was developed by a genius programmer who was Sophie's brother. Just then, the horrors police of the Golden Country discovered them. Wilhelm and Luke, along with the man, fought their way out. To uncover the whole truth, they entered the headquarters of the Golden Country. The Queen had been waiting for a long time. Numerous demonic man-eating plants attacked them, but Wilhelm and Luke dispatched each one. The Queen herself easily blocked the combined attack of Wilhelm and Luke. At that moment, a monster kidnapped Sophie. Shadow Walker Bishop dragged Sophie and threw her into the sea of consciousness of the Golden Country. Wilhelm jumped in to rescue her, and their souls entered the real Golden Country. When Wilhelm awoke, he was surprised to see his sister, who had long been dead, while Sophie finally met her long-sought brother. Pedestrians on the street strangely kept twisting their heads, and then horrors monsters emerged from within them. These human-faced spider monsters began searching for intruders under the commands of the Golden Country system. They soon discovered Willem, but he violently hurled them away. Facing the attacking human-faced spider monsters, Wilhelm knocked them all out with just his fists. However, more horrors monsters soon arrived. Fortunately, Wilhelm's sister had partial access to the Golden Country system and successfully deceived these monsters. 10 years ago, an ancient horrors monster infiltrated the Seagram Technology Company, stole research on virtual human brain space technology, and laid the groundwork for the Golden Country network. A Makai Knight who arrived to stop it defeated the ancient horrors monster's physical form. The explosive battle that ensued affected Wilhelm's sister. At that time, her soul was captured by the Golden Country, but due to her Golden Knight lineage, she retained full self-awareness. Meanwhile, Sophie finally met her long-missed brother, Martin. She was shocked to see that he possessed the Mado Ring, which could control horrors monsters, and he was actually the king of the Golden Country. Sophie desperately tried to pull the Mado Ring off her brother's finger, telling him that he had taken many innocent lives. Martin refused to believe Sophie, showed her the greatness of the Golden Country, and told her that soon, the Golden Country network would connect to the entire world, and all humanity would move there. What Martin did not know was that this so-called relocation meant the death of humanity, a plot by the horrors monsters to farm humans. Just then, Willem's sister found Sophie. They had come to rescue her. The Dark Queen appeared again, blocking Willem with numerous tentacles. In his soul state, Willem could not transform in the Golden Country and was ultimately restrained. His sister used her access to send Wilhelm back to reality. Beside them, Sophie, heartbroken, watched the horrors monster on her brother's shadow. She decisively embraced her brother and jumped into the abyss. The siblings awoke in reality, in a place littered with human remains. Seeing everything around him, Martin seemed to hear the cries of thousands of the dead, and he collapsed emotionally, choosing to flee. Martin, once so steadfast, was now shattered inside. The once pure-hearted Martin was finally corrupted by the horrors monster within the Mado Ring. Even faced with his sister Sophie's calls, he could not wake up again. Martin extended his hand wearing the Mado Ring. Dark red blood of the horrors monster spurted out. The ancient horrors monster appeared and swallowed Martin in one bite. The true king of the Golden Country, the ancient king of the horrors monsters, was resurrected. The man riding the flame motorcycle broke through the realm of void at full throttle. Then, Gorokin activated its blazing flame mode, with flames rising and the crimson gold greatsword shining bright. The Golden Knight Garo gripped the greatsword and slashed down at the king of the horrors monsters. This ancient horrors monster was cleaved in two, its soul completely extinguished. To save humanity on the brink of peril, Wilhelm chose to confront the terrifying king of the horrors monsters. He rode the revived Zaruba, alongside Sophie, who had administrative access to the Golden Country system, and re-entered the Golden Country. As horror's monsters swarmed, Wilhelm stayed behind to hold them off. Sophie headed to the core of the Golden Country to shut down the system. The king of the horror's monsters took Wilhelm by surprise, swallowing him into the realm of void. This black and white world is the absolute domain of the ancient horror's monsters. The Golden Knight Garo was gradually eroded by the void, losing his color. On the other side, all three swords of the Golden Country were deployed. The Dark Queen battled Makai alchemist Gina. In the fierce fight, the Queen revealed her true dark form and overpowered Gina. Luke was also at a disadvantage in his fight against his father, the Dark Knight Chris. Their defeat seemed certain. However, Sophie, who always believed in Wilhelm, never gave up. Enduring great pain, she plunged her hands into the core of the Golden Country, calling out to Wilhelm. Finally, Wilhelm awoke. Because humanity, in any era, continues to fight against destruction. As guardians of humanity, they would never surrender but would cut through the darkness with their swords, even at the cost of their lives. Luke firmly raised his sword, aware that his opponent was unbeatable. After suffering severe damage again, he activated a preset magic circle. The tremendous energy caused a massive explosion, temporarily stopping the Dark Knight. Facing the Dark Queen's scorn, Gina stood up defiantly. With her magic pet's coordinated assistance, she made a sharp turn on her motorcycle and charged directly at the Queen. Then Gina picked up a modified Gatling gun and fired wildly at the approaching Dark Queen. Under the terrifying firepower, the Queen was severely wounded and knelt. Gina, with her transformed dual guns, blasted the Queen's head. Meanwhile, Wilhelm was fiercely battling in the realm of void. The surging power of Garo boiled within him, and he finally broke through the blockade. Slaying the king of the horror's monsters. With the demise of the horror's monster king, Sophie's brother Martin's soul was finally freed. He said his final goodbye to his sister Sophie. Overwhelmed with grief, Sophie entered the shutdown code for the Golden Country system, which was all for my sister. Humanity worldwide was finally saved. Freed from the control of the Motto Ring, Chris finally let Luke go. He could now have a fair fight with Wilhelm. A fierce battle ensued, their sharp spears and blades clashing wildly. Impressed by such a formidable opponent, Wilhelm was full of praise. Caught up in the thrill, they discarded their weapons and resorted to hand-to-hand combat. The explosive punches were blood-pumping. Eventually, the ultimate showdown between light and dark occurred. In a flash of lightning, the golden greatsword pierced Chris's dark armor. Chris smiled contentedly as he faded into darkness,